All right. I am officially live. I am having Dr. Laura on today. She is the creator of a product that has been absolutely life-saving for me called O Nectar. And so I'm waiting for her. There she is. Okay, she joined and let's see. Did we get there?
Ah, hi.
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 We're live.
Great.
Look at you with all your degrees and diplomas and looking so cute.
Those are my brothers, actually. I'm in his
Really?
house. But next time you'll be able to see my degree.
Yeah, I was pretty floored when I got off the phone with you last week. I was like, this woman is so brilliant. I was so excited to get a chance to talk to you.
Thanks. Yeah, putting a lot of time into to figure out how to live properly as an aging person, and there's a lot to consider. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about, I just brought my bottle because I love it. I wanted to talk about this product that you've created for women of a certain age, and uh, it's
that
called
term,
O Nectar.
I love that term. If
Yeah,
anybody
women of a
doesn't know
certain
that,
age.
yep.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah. So
yeah, if you want to
oh,
talk a little bit about the O Nectar and what inspired you to create it, and just your path in women's health.
sure. Well, I was inspired to create O Nectar really for myself. My patient population turned into women with bone loss because of a book that I wrote for my mother a few years ago to help her navigate bone loss naturally. So then I had a lot of my patient population turned to that demographic.
Yeah.
And a little older than I am, and I started to watch um, these women and their struggles. And having conversations about bone loss, conversations about hormones, and conversations about hormones can lead to conversations about, comfort in their own bodies and these sorts of things that are changing for them. And there were a number of patients, who talked about, personal issues, leaking, these things, which I really, nobody had ever told me about that, right? Nobody had ever, these things aren't even discussed and having since then spoken to a lot of doctors, urologists and other MDs and other types of obstetricians, these kinds of things are not even addressed in medical school. So
Mm-mm.
there's this there's this giant space of where all of this stuff kind of just disappears as we age. And I don't, whatever the reasons are, it doesn't really matter. What matters is creating the solutions because the solutions are available. And, I mean, one thing that I know for sure, having worked with the body for many years, is that the body is brilliant and beautiful at maintaining itself, care of itself, if we're providing the right things for it. And
Yeah.
the natural world, pretty much everything that we need in order to do that. It's just about what each person needs and then applying the nature. So that was what I did with bone health, and I've been able to really very successfully reverse bone loss. I won't say, I'll get in trouble if I say cure osteoporosis, but we can say reverse bone loss. The incredible degree, let's just put it there, with natural medicine. So that's always been my path, is figuring out how to apply the tools of nature to actually work with what would be called disease or an imbalance of the body. And
Mm-hmm.
so when it came to having these discussions with women about their, vaginal sexual wellness, these things were apparent that there were no tools for them. So in thinking about my own aging and what I want to feel and how I want to be, I started working on figuring out how to, help this issue.
Yeah.
Uh, when I came out of that work.
Yeah. It's really amazing because I all of a sudden was faced with like something out of the blue. I'd been in menopause for a while, and then all of a sudden I was faced with atrophy. And I was newly married, and I'm a little bit older, but I went into menopause early, and it was really just like overnight that that these changes happened, and it was horrible. And I had heard friends say that they experienced that, and I was like, no way, like, really, could it really be that bad? And then I started experiencing that kind of pain from atrophy, and it was unbelievable. And so, I was avoiding having intimate relationship with my husband. I was just like, please don't even, like, don't even mention the word. So I started down a path of like trying to find like any product that would work. And we tried so much. A lot of it was just like lubrications or water-based stuff, or natural, like coconut oil. I went so far as to go and get a prescription for estrogen cream that you insert, and I literally could not get myself to do that. I couldn't. It just felt so wrong, in every way. And then it just happened, that Mary Margaret, who's your CEO, reached out to me. She was a friend. She's like, I'm not sure if you're experiencing this, but I was like, this is unbelievable, and it was interesting because receiving the package and kind of like, getting the bottle, working with, you ask the women to work with intentionality while they're using the cream, and also, connecting with yourself and your feminine, which I felt like I was so disconnected from. And I was just really shocked at like, how could this do anything for me if I'm not inserting it, you know? And then just like after a week of using the product and having, it was just like, I couldn't even believe it. It's just been so life-changing. And so I'm curious, like, how you're wanting to, corner the market on this product. Like, what are some of your thoughts on, like, addressing this for women, and getting this out like in a bigger way? Because I just think like every woman needs to know about this. So
Um, well, I mean, I'll just back up to what you were saying earlier, which is sort of the intentionality of it. I mean, you know, there's two things going on here, and one thing is chemicals, right? We are chemistry, or we are chemistry as beings, and if our chemistry is not right, then we're not going to, and this is the study of consciousness and emotion, all this stuff, and where they are and what creates all this stuff. You can't exclude the chemical component of this, right? So no matter that consciousness is etheric, we still have to have the chemistry in order to and feel. So the chemistry is one thing, and that's something that we're addressing with this product, rebalancing that chemistry issues, um, and the experience of femininity and being connected to your partner, being connected to the universe as a woman, is very strong when we're menstruating, but
totally.
that changes. So getting component is, part of the key to this. And then from that place, opening up into the access you can have once the chemistry is right. And, in terms of just sort of sexuality in general, so much of it is in the mind. You know, I mean, yes, of course, there's sex drive, which is chemical, but the rest of it is in the mind. And I think one of the things about getting older is that sex drive can shift and can lessen, and then we can take over with our minds. And
Yeah.
it's a sort of new stage of sexual, connection and wellness, and a sort of a larger emotional, imaginative experience as we age. And so, what I'm interested in is getting the chemistry to the place where you can then access all of that great stuff, which is the mind.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of the product is built, for me, for that, because it's not just about the physical at all.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the intention for the product, and that's why I include this concept of intention and ritual, because
Yeah.
it's just true when you want to connect with yourself or with someone else. The more focus and intent you have with your brain and your body, the more intense, beautiful the experience can be, I think. So taking the moment, I mean, as Americans, we're right. So taking the moment to not to, wow, what am I doing, and how am I doing it, and what sort of intention am I creating, and can I make this experience the most beautiful it can be? Because at the end of the day, life can be new, and it's basically free, right? So um, we have this. So I don't know how to get this product out apart from, we founded a company around it and have a wonderful CEO, and we have our first investment. So,
Great.
people,
Congratulations.
thank you. It's not a big investment, but it's enough for us to have, get our first order of product in and try and look for the next, we want the bottle to be glass, and we want everything to be
Mm,
sustainable,
yeah.
fillable. The ethos of the company and the ethos of myself is, do no harm, right? You have
Yeah.
to sort of take the Hippocratic oath seriously. So that all must be in the DNA of the company.
Yeah.
But of course, it's a process getting to all of that. I have no doubt that we'll get there. I mean,
Amazing.
I product, and I will never stop using product, right? And
Yeah.
people who've been in the company who are of women d'un certain âge, also feel the same way about the product. So I think that there's a great product. We just need to
Yeah.
talk about it and talk
Yeah.
about the experience
Totally.
like you're doing, and
Yeah.
sharing your experience. Great.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be for me as well. Like, this is the product. This is like the number one product for my life that, like, I will not go without. It's changed my life like in 2 weeks, you know? And it's so interesting because you talk about that connection, with the mind and with the self. And like, I definitely had gotten myself really worked up through all of this, and like really emotionally and sort of, you know, mentally worked up about the whole thing. And so using the cream for just the week, I was like, I'm just going to be open-minded and just see. Like, I was reading some of the testimonials. I was like, I don't know, that sounds too good to be true, but I'm just going to use it. I'm going to connect with myself. So I spent the week really like just deeply connecting with myself, and then and I was actually the one that instigated sex with my husband, which was like, it's been rare, because of the amount of pain that I'm experiencing. And so that, just going through that morning together, I was so present, and I was able to just lean into, I was at first like, oh my gosh, this is so wild. Like, the pain has reduced so much. I was already in this place of like wonder and getting present with myself. And then, when we were together, I was like, oh, wow, I am like present with this intimacy in a way that I haven't been in so long, and like the fear was really subsiding, and it had been subsiding that week just in using the product. And I'm just so curious, like, if you could explain the science a little bit behind it, because it's all natural ingredients and you don't use it internally. So I was just like so blown away by what this is doing to create. I don't know if it's like creating more, I think, fluid with the membranes. I think that's what you explained on the phone to me.
Sure. Well, I mean, this is coming also back to the body being this like incredible tool, this incredible machine, organism, is that when you apply things to, say, for example, the outer lips of the vagina, which is what we're doing here, the vulva, the tissue knows what to do, right? It's like you use products on the external portion of the reproductive system, and the tissue will uptake the right part of the, into where the tissue go.
Wow.
So can affect the internal sort of reproductive system through application externally. So that's one thing that's going on here, which is that it's just the body is really intelligent.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's why you don't sort of need to use an internal application.
Yeah.
In terms of the itself, there's a substance in wild yams which turns into what is called DHEA, and that's a precursor in the
Yeah.
body, made by the adrenal glands. And when you apply this to skin, it turns into testosterone. And testosterone is something that's, women need testosterone,
Yeah.
but it's always been left out of discussion for women because it was called the men's hormone. And as it turns out, a large part of the vulva, part of those lips, is actually bladder tissue. It's called the vestibula,
Okay.
and it needs testosterone in order to be healthy.
Wow.
So part of the requirement of the vaginal tissue is actually testosterone. And I've never heard anybody talk about this except for Dr. Yoloko, who is our MD advisor,
Wow.
who's amazing. And I was like, oh, she's talking about this. We need to.
Wow.
And so, in medical practice, what you see a lot is women have what it feels like a UTI, and you test and there's no bacteria, and you're like, well, what is this experience? And this experience is actually this bladder tissue sort of drying out and being unhealthy.
Wow.
And the pH balance shifting because that tissue needs to be properly hydrated with testosterone in order to keep the tissue in its proper pH, right? Because pH has to be vital for the health of this vaginal area. So all tied up, and as soon as you take care of that tissue, then all of a sudden the pH, bacterial population goes back to health. The tissue itself is now plump and healthy because it's receiving what it needs to receive. And then also like I said, the tissue is, the body's smart. It sort of pulls it all up into the tissue, and everything feels great again. So it's just sort of looking at proper assistance, really. And this is, it's done without estrogen, right? Which is also another really big deal because there are some people that can't, use estrogen. So, yeah.
Amazing. Can you just talk briefly, really quickly about estrogen? Can we have that quick conversation? Because you said something on the phone that like totally blew my mind. And it was one of the issues I was talking to you about with HRT. And you were saying that there are some women that don't have the pathways to dump estrogen.
Sure. Yeah. So the body has 3 different detoxification pathways. So we run out of estrogen, right? At some point we stop making it. So it's not something that's recycled, right? We have to process it. So when we process, that's a process of detoxification. And what that means is that the body breaks down the estrogen into pieces that it can then remove. So there's 3 pathways of detoxification of estrogen in the human body. 2 of them are considered safe, meaning that when they break the estrogen, they produce metabolites, and these metabolites are safe. They can be safe. There's one pathway of the 3 that creates a dangerous metabolite. And what this means is that it's a molecule that's going to damage something. And in this case, it damages and so what you see when people are detoxing primarily out of this pathway and have a high level of this metabolite is you can see DNA damage. If you look,
Really? Wow.
that DNA damage is actually how you actually can get a reproductive cancer. So, because cancer isn't something that you catch, right?
Right.
It's your own genes changing function and allowing this to happen. And that kind of change of function can happen from damage. And this is one of the
Mhm.
reasons medication in general is so important, right, from a medical perspective,
Yeah.
especially in the United States. But estrogen itself is a detoxification product. If it's going through this pathway, you then run the risk of making these dangerous metabolites. So coming to understand, if you're, any age whatsoever, right?
Mhm.
If you're younger, a lot of estrogen, you want to know that you're detoxing it properly.
Yeah.
If you're older and you're using an HRT, you want to make sure that you're detoxifying.
Yeah.
So this is something, again, that I also don't really hear many people talk about. And if you want to, it's a very important piece of information to know, I think.
Yeah.
And you can test it.
Yeah. You were saying there's tests that you can do to see if you're, eliminating estrogen, which I think it's so important.
Yeah, you can test to see how much of each pathway is being used in the tox process. And, there's no point in testing unless we can actually do something about it. And the really good
Yeah.
thing is there are natural solutions, natural substances that target these pathways, and you can then retarget the pathway of detoxification.
Yeah.
So with natural nutrition. So yeah, so that's a really important thing, I think, as we age.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
well.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Yeah, this is definitely, it's been wonderful getting a chance to talk to you. I'd love to chat with you again on a live some more about the product. And I know you guys are also creating another product called Boost, which will be like, is that like the nectar on steroids?
Yes. Yeah, that product is similar. It's got a similar base ingredient, but it's packaged slightly differently. And it is sort of like an intensive version. And the way that people have been using it is actually in the moment. So there's now, there's two ways of considering it. One is O-Nectar, really the daily, like, let's get the tissue healthy and get the
Yeah.
mind back into it.
Yeah.
And then Boost being sort of more of the disco product.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. So amazing. Is there anything else you want to add about the product? Anything else you want to talk about with O-Nectar that maybe I didn't ask or we didn't cover?
No, I mean, it's really a product for everyone. There's plenty of research on, the base ingredient of the product, and it's safe. It looks like it's safe across the board.
Mm-hmm.
People who are dealing with current reproductive cancers, should certainly talk to their doctor. Other than, it's really, I mean, even them, there's plenty of research talking about safety profile
Yeah.
as an option who can't use estrogen. But we would still want to put that in the hands of their doctors. But
Yeah.
other than that, it's really an every woman's product.
Amazing. It's just making me very happy. So,
I'm really glad to
yeah.
hear that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. I mean, it would be, can we spend a minute just hearing about you?
Yeah. I mean, let's see. What about me? I'm a women's coach. I'm a women's empowerment coach. I do a lot of work with the voice. And so I'm really, really interested in the connection between the womb and the voice, and also just how the physiology looks so much the same. You've got the vocal cords, you've got the cervix, you've got the larynx, you've got the vaginal tube and the lips and the even the way the pelvic floor and the larynx, you know. So for me, there's been with working with women in this area of like opening the voice, there's been this huge natural connection to the womb area. And you know, with creativity and a lot of shutdown in both areas. So much of the voice, you know, is connected, the shutdown of the voice is connected in shame. And a lot of shame is rooted in female sexuality and, you know, all the things that sort of go along with not feeling like your voice can be heard. So so that's what I do. I call myself a holistic vocal coach. And then I do a lot of the kind of emotional and physical coaching that goes along with that. A lot of trauma blocks that are actually in the body. So I teach women how to use the voice as a pathway to opening like trauma and stuck blocks in the body. Because the voice, to me, it's like the voice is the key. It's like this one of the safest elements that we can use the voice very safely to like open up these spaces in the body and open up energy channels and access deeper stories. And I call it de-armoring. So accessing areas where there's blocks, especially like in the heart or in the womb, and then using the voice to sort of move the energy. And then we look at what's behind, a lot of times what's behind the block. So there's a lot of like what you call inner child work. I do a lot of inner child work or shadow work with people. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
There sounds like also frequency, you know, I mean, everything, frequency, shaking the body, moving the body with one of the original medicines. So
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah. For me, I'm deeply interested in like the nervous system and how, you know, and the gut brain axis and kind of where trauma gets stored and how to like use the frequency of sound to soothe the nervous system and, you know, just allow for the body to come into more like true alignment with the
right.
self. So yeah,
Right.
thanks for asking. Yeah,
Very interesting. So we can talk more about that too next time.
for sure. I would love that. Well, I really look forward to continuing this conversation, and I'd like to have you on my official podcast at some point. I have a podcast that I just launched today, so I'll have to have you on for that. We'll
Absolutely.
get a chance to talk about you and about O Nectar some more.
That would be great.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Laura.
Okay. Thanks, Janae.
Have a great day. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.